Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me as always is...
Tiptoe through the tulip. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
Oh.
I didn't have one at the ready. I just realized, oh shit, I didn't pick out a quote.
So creepy.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to Tiny Tim you there.
Yeah. And today we're talking about Insidious, released April 1st, 2011. But I guess this was a TIFF 2010 release. So take whichever year you want as the official release year of Insidious. But we got a new movie coming out in July here, the fifth one. And I just had a hankering to go back and watch these again. I actually haven't seen all of them, but I figured now is the time to.
How many have you seen?
I own 1 and 2, and from what I understand, that's like the regular sequence because 3 and 4 are prequels, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do my Judge Judy. That's either a yes or a no answer.
It's a yeah.
Oh,
it's a yeah.
Do I need to watch 3 and 4 in order to understand 5 when that comes out? That's all I want to know.
That I don't know, because as far as I know, 5 is a proper sequel. So, yeah. I mean, they... Oh, God. 5 is like the Paranormal
Activity 4 to the Paranormal Activity 1, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We'll finally be getting back to a sequence. I believe. Because Ty Simpkins, little Dalton, the actor who played him, is all fully grown, and he's in it. And Patrick Wilson, this is his directorial debut.
I mean,
the new one.
I haven't watched the trailer, but I know that the character, like the family, is in it. Again, right. And from what I just reading like a little log line, it said like 10 years after the last time we saw them, because the Insidious Chapter 2 came out in 2013. So I think that they're just kind of picking up where they left off. So we won't talk about any of the other movies besides the first one. For mainly for my benefit, but also for anyone listening, because you folks matter as well. But but Edward, you'll refrain, right?
Well, 3 and 4, it's easy not to talk about because
nothing. I don't.
They don't have anything. Yeah. Okay. It's easy. I guess it's not. But but 2, even like I won't mention anything, although, that's all I'll say.
Well, when we get to that one, we'll get to that one.
When we get to that one, we'll talk about that one.
But now I already know you hate it, but thanks. So anyway,
But you don't know why. You don't know why.
Oh, I'm sure I know you, so I'm pretty sure I could, piece together why. So.
Oh, okay.
So Insidious, this.
Yes.
I mean, I know that this, judging by what you just said, it's not probably a franchise that you love, but I know that you really like this one because I've heard you talk about it before. I know that you've talked about it with John Carlos because I saw your Instagram posts, and I went on Letterboxd last night after I watched it, and I saw that you had a glowing review of it. So so tell me about it.
It's definitely top 10 horror for me, and it's so funny to talk from that point of view for this pod, because for the first time ever, I just rewatched it today, and I didn't need to rewatch it to discuss it, because I've seen it often enough that I feel like it's always kind of like at the ready.
I think you watched it like a few months ago, according to your...
and I do watch it like probably every 6 to 12 months.
Oh, wow.
And well, like, because every now and then, like, I want to be scared, and it's one of those movies that I watch that still just, like, makes me cringe for all the right reasons and makes me go, and everything. Like, it's kind of like maybe the best example in recent years for me, this is just my experience, of that kind of blood curdling, like, knot in your stomach that you get when you're in some kind of social situation and people start telling ghost stories, whether they're from their own life or whether they're, like, nobody knows that in this very building, on this very floor, that kind of thing, where everybody kind of like leans in and becomes a little bit more hypersensitive to sound and to the tone of voice that people are using, like the atmosphere. That's a good word to use. I think I put it in my review for Insidious. The atmosphere that James Wan and his team create, and that all the actors contribute to, and all the designers and everybody, just are really, really evocative to me of that ooky, spooky, chill up my spine feeling. So I still get it when I watch the movie. However, I watched it for the first time during the day today, and it felt more like a family melodrama. And I was as caught up for slightly different reasons as I usually am. But and I've never cried in this movie before. I cried this time when Patrick Wilson's character Josh is sitting there with Dalton, like he's denied the explanation from Elise and everything, and he's just there with Dalton going, "Where are you, buddy? Where'd you go?" and everything. And he goes over and he looks at the wall and he sees the drawings, and then he starts to cry, and in walks Renee, Rose Byrne's character, and I was weeping. I was like, what is going on? This never happened before.
Which is funny because that's so on brand for like you and like it's like no, but like as opposed to me, because that scene came on and I felt like this is filler.
Oh my god.
We can talk about that later.
Okay.
But so that's your
that's the most nutshell I can offer for this movie. How about you?
Okay. Well, I never saw this in the theater. I didn't even see the second one in the theater. In fact, I'm not sure if the second one had already come out by the time I saw the first. No, I don't think it did. All I remember is that I bought the Blu-ray, which I wish I had in front of me because it has like one of those like iridescent slip covers that I love.
Right.
But yeah, I bought it and I watched it because I think it was recommended by a lot of people, and I really liked it. I enjoyed it, and I watched it once again, maybe within like the next year or so, and it was good enough that I wanted to buy the sequel when that came out on Blu-ray. Which I don't remember. I'm going to watch it before I go see the new movie. But I never had, kind of the urgency to go back and watch it in these, I guess, 11, 12 years since. And I don't know why, because I had enjoyed it. And I was watching it last night, and I really love the way the movie started. Like, I think that it's like, I agree with you, like atmosphere is definitely one of this film's strong suits, and something that James Wan really excels at. And I kind of liked how, I think that the thing that like really drew me into it is just like the family and the performances in particular, because it feels so lived in when you meet these people, and you're and it's such a relatable thing too, because like I hate moving, and mostly because of the unpacking. Because when I like move into a new place, I don't unpack. Like, I just leave my boxes. I still have shit. I've lived in this place for 2 years. I still have shit like in boxes somewhere that I have not taken out. So it's just so relatable to like move into a new place and just sort of like the hectic nature. I mean, fortunately I don't have children, but that I'd have to,
especially after seeing this movie, fortunately.
Yeah. But there's just something I really love, because it's almost like it has, I mentioned Paranormal Activity, because there's this sort of slow burn about it in the first act in particular, where we're not like, we know this is a horror movie that we're watching, and there's definitely like something off as we're going through it. But like really, like the first little while of this movie, nothing is happening, and it's not until I think it might be the baby monitor. I couldn't remember the first specific detail other than the title card, which is reminiscent of The Exorcist with like the same like stringy music, but
red letters.
Yeah, which is interesting because Exorcist is another slow burn start of a movie. So I don't know, like I was really getting into it. I loved how, as Lee Winnell explains in the featurette on the Blu-ray, is that we wanted to explore subgenres that hadn't been done before, but we wanted to like switch it up. So it's just like we started this out as like, is it a haunted house movie? No. Right. Is it a possession movie? No. It's actually an astral projection movie, which is like a brand new genre that we've never done before. So I liked like the ever-changing nature of that as it went along. But there's just something about the third act that it doesn't land for me. I don't know what it is in particular. Maybe, this is like our usual therapy session where, we work through the trauma and we figure it out by the end. But I don't know. It just like, it might have just felt a little rushed to me.
Going into the parts. Further, you mean?
The further in particular, because I was just sitting there and I was kind of, my interest was waning. I was kind of like, okay. Like it's almost like, I want to say, because, we talked about Malignant a few months back, and, that movie is, it has its problems, but, it's, I kind of love it for all the wrong reasons. And I think, like, in particular with that one, like, it leans heavily into the camp. And I feel like there's a certain level of camp here, especially when like the team comes in, like Elise and her two stooges. And I don't know, like maybe at that point, like, because I know that they didn't want to lose the tone, but I already felt it kind of like going away, that maybe it would have just been better to like full on go into like Malignant camp territory there, where it is like overly serious, but it's just like what's happening is so ridiculous. I don't know. So that's kind of my current takeaway.
I mean, to your point about the third act, I do have to say again, I would never encourage anyone to see this movie for the first time the way I saw it today, like by daylight. Like, don't watch it on your phone. Don't don't carry it on your computer around the house while you're doing housework during the day or anything like that. Like, sit down in the dark, like turn all the lights out.
Do people do that? Just walk around with their laptop?
I do.
And do housework with the laptop in one hand while they're just wiping.
Not in one hand, but like I will carry my laptop from room to room while I'm like, doing laundry or.
No wonder your batteries dies all the time.
Exactly.
We literally just like we got on to the call that we usually do, and like within like a minute his laptop and phone died. So
it's a very old computer. So anyway, I know this is riveting for the people listening to this, but okay. So anyway, I would say it's a theatrical experience. It helps if you're fixed in your seat and if you're not looking at your phone and if you have the lights out and if you can get all like ooh about the stuff that's going on, because I think the third act kind of depends on that. And I did, for the first time ever that I can remember in the third act, start to get a little kind of like relaxed, just kind of like leaned on my side, and I stayed awake. I didn't fall asleep or anything. I wasn't tired, but I was just like, Insidious, It wasn't as tense. It's not as tense if you can see the room you're watching it in. Let's just put it that way. But the earnest quality of the third act, like of I don't know, the fact that there are still things that are happening on a ridiculous level, but I like the fact that Patrick Wilson as Josh is there to kind of acknowledge the ridiculousness. I'm so happy that there's a cynical character who is assigned that role in this script, but he's not an asshole, like we're not all sitting there spending the whole movie hating him. I don't even spend the entire scene where he starts to reject the notion that astral projection is even a thing, and that's what's happened to their son and everything like that. Everything that he's doing actually makes total sense if it's happening in the world, but because we've been in most of the movie with Rose Byrne alongside, with Renee, like experiencing it firsthand, and then they move, and then it's still going, and it's like going on during the day. Fuck me, but so I understand her point of view also, so I can see the two of them, but he's not saying like, you need to get it together, stop doing that. She's like, you don't believe me. He's like, I don't believe you. What do you mean I don't believe you? I changed houses for you. And then the next scene happens where I cry.
Yeah, with the whole house changing thing, which is another, which I thought was brilliant. But are we still doing premises? I feel like
we've been getting into it. Like I this is the thing. I thought I'd switch that up too a little bit, just because I don't know, writing a premise every week or adapting one, it's just like, I found one that I feel, well, let me just read it to you and you'll see why I wanted to read it.
Yeah.
This is courtesy of Ahmet Kozan on IMDb. The Lambert family move into a new home. Little do they know that the house is haunted. The next morning, Ryanie puts her books on the shelf. A few minutes later, the books fall off the shelf on their own. The baby monitor says it all. The demon takes over an innocent child. Insidious.
Which, does it really say it all?
I mean,
first of all,
I read that and I was like, I've got to share that with Zack.
I love that her name is Renee, but it's spelled, because you said Ryanie.
Ryan, it's misspelled in the review as well, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, because isn't it like Rainy or?
Isn't it RENAI or RANAI, something like that? But
I'm not sure, but I was looking at the cast list, like, as before I started the movie, and I'm just like, her name is here, I'll just look it up here. Renee. I mean, if you pronounced it phonetically, it's
non-traditional spelling.
RENAI.
Okay.
But I even remember looking at that. I'm just like, how do you? What is her name? How do you say it? Apologies for anyone whose name is Renee and it's spelled that way. But pretty quickly, I think Josh says calls her Renee. So I'm like, oh, okay, good thing we had that. But does the child become possessed? Because the whole premise of the movie is that he's like this open vessel that is just waiting to be possessed, but he never actually does become possessed. So it sounds like this reviewer or describer
viewer
didn't
participant
did not watch the movie
or just, that a lot got lost in translation. They even said the second line, little do they know that the house is haunted, and then so you're gonna turn it on its head and say, but the house isn't haunted. I mean, I think it was one of the taglines for the movie is that it's not the house that's haunted, it's their son. But and it was in the trailer. Remember, it's not. They put it in the trailer too. I remember Lin Shaye sitting there going it's not the house that's haunted.
Oh my God, is this Blumhouse?
It's your son. You got me. I don't remember.
I think it is. That would make that would make absolute complete sense that Jason Blum would be there, and he was just talking to James Winnell or James Wan and Lee Winnell, and just being James. We'll just put them together and make
James Winnell.
They have one name. Lee Wan.
Oh God! Oh my God! You could do it both ways. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But
no, and he'd just be like, oh yeah, we got to put that as the tagline in the trailer. It's just but that's the twist, and it's just nobody's gonna remember.
I mean, to their credit, if that's the case, and even I don't even remember if this is Blumhouse. I think
I'm looking.
I just remember seeing the trailer. I remember seeing that and going, oh, "What the fuck? That's fucked up." But by the time I got to the movie, because it had been such a long time between the time I'd seen the trailer and seen the movie, I forgot about the premise, and I legit thought the house is haunted. And when they moved, I was like, "Oh, the shit's still going to be there." And then I saw that poor little guy ghost child in the daylight standing in the corner, Blair Witch style. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck.
Well, no, but like I didn't see that. That was one of those things that people tell you about, and then you have to go back and watch and notice, or just like see on YouTube videos. It doesn't say.
I saw it and then I forgot about it. What?
It doesn't say Blumhouse on here, but I'm pretty sure I've seen. I mean, like, this would be to Blumhouse's credit to have this movie as part of their library, but Oh well, I mean, I misspoke. It's not Blumhouse.
But not just Blumhouse, but
yeah.
But in terms of I completely lost track of what we were saying. You have something to say? What were we talking about?
No, we were talking about the ghost child Blair Witch style and the
right. Who I adore. It's played by an actor, Ben Wolfe, who isn't around anymore. He, the only other thing I saw him in was the fourth season freak show of American Horror Story, and no spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it and desperately wants to, but not spoiler, but just be prepared to be bummed out. A lot of. That's why I had to walk away from American Horror Story. Too many introductions of like incredible actors playing roles that it's like, here, let's make you care about this person. Now let's just damage them. And but no, Ben Wolfe, I believe, got hit by a car. Like was crossing a street and got hit by a car.
Yeah, because he's an adult playing like the young boy, but he had some degenerative disease that gave him not like dwarfism, but I think it prevented his bones from growing more, and he actually had shrunk as an adult, and he was jaywalking, and his head was struck by the rear view mirror of a car that came by, because I guess he was like not like that he was level with it when yeah. And I just know this because I was
4'3". I think he was only 4'3" too.
Yeah, because I was it was in some sort of trivia when I was reading about the movie. Insidious is Blumhouse distributed, I guess. It says distributor film district, but I mean Blumhouse was like pretty new in 2010, so it might have. I don't know if they had the Blumhouse banner at that point, but Jason Blum is a producer on Insidious, so it makes maybe that conversation did exist where he's like nobody's gonna remember, very much like the Sinister. Nobody's gonna remember the Bughuul jump scare on the screen.
Also, it just goes to show you like those opening credits, like it has a proper like opening credits sequence, and I'm just so hypnotized by the still photographs that were kind of like gliding through that I don't even pay attention to the names. And if I'm looking at the names, all I'm doing is looking at the ghostly apparitions of the names just drifting away, just fading away like into smoke.
What I liked about those is because like it started off like it was pretty still as far as the photography goes, but then there'd be like little things like the picture frame tilting, and it kind of got me to be looking to see like where's like the apparition or like the paranormal activity in this frame. Where do I have to be looking through it? And I already knew that of course this is just my viewing last night, but I already knew that there was like the ghost child standing in the corner there when she walks by. But I was like trying to see throughout the movie, like I was constantly like looking for things that were maybe there, and I even went online after just to see like all the things that you missed in Insidious or just like certain things, and there was nothing. I mean, I didn't really look that hard, but the only things that came up were literally that thing with the child there. But I thought, I don't know. I mean, because I wasn't wearing my glasses. But when she first comes downstairs in the morning, it looks like in like the hallway behind her, like just I guess next to the clock. It looked like an open door, and there was like maybe like a child like way off behind it, staring at something. But maybe I was just so like I was looking for something, so I just saw like anything that wasn't actually there, and I gave up pretty quickly because I'm just like it's gonna be. when you start to pay too much attention to like little details like that, you're not watching the movie anymore.
Yeah,
and I just wanted to watch the movie because especially at the beginning, like it really hooked me in there. And the thing with James Wan and Lee Winnell, because the Lee is credited as writing it, but like from the conversations or just like what they said on the featurette, like it really sounded like it was a very collaborative effort where they really did both, like, or at least like James conceptualized the script with him, and probably in a way like Lee just described to James like certain things of like how he envisioned like this scene being directed or that. And obviously they did Saw together before this, and I love the little Easter egg of the Jigsaw face on the chalkboard, or the Billy on the chalkboard in Patrick Wilson's classroom. But the thing that they were talking about was just like jump scares in particular, and just how at that point like the genre had become so saturated by them, and they weren't scary, they were like really obnoxious actually. And I mean, you can probably go back to the 90s for that, because I think that was like the biggest offender. I'm not going to spoil what's coming next week yet, but there's a lot of them in that movie, and they're used very poorly. But it gets to the point where it's just like someone, like just a random character will come up behind someone and like tap them on the shoulder or whatever. And there's like a loud stinging music, and it's just like, oh, and it's just like, oh, but it's just like the good old, sheriff or whatever, just coming to check things out. Nothing to be afraid of. And it's things like that I actually watched like a really insightful YouTube video on this a long time ago. It's probably still around, but just talking about jump scares, and they used James Wan specifically as an example to that, and just showed how the reason that it works for Insidious and like what they're doing with this movie, and even probably Sinister, because we talked about the jump scares in that when we covered that podcast, is that they're using them a lot, but they're using them appropriately. Like they're like, when there's a jump scare, it's for the thing that we need to be afraid of, because otherwise what you're doing is like, when you're making a horror movie and you're building up a mood, and you have the atmosphere there, and then you have something like just like a minor character, or as Robbie would say in Scream 4, like you shut the refrigerator and ooh, there's a harmless character standing behind it. Like that's where your brain then signals to you to say that, oh, like that's the release. Like there's nothing to be afraid of anymore, because this was the threat, and if that's the threat, I don't care. And it kind of desensitizes you to being afraid of anything else. And they used as an example, they actually created or used the scene from Halloween where right after Donald Pleasance does the "Yo, Lonnie, get your ass away from there," and Sheriff Brackett comes up and he like taps him on the shoulder. And in Halloween 1978, there is no sting. We don't hear that, like whenever Michael Myers appears on screen, it's just silence. And Donald Pleasance is like reacts to it, and he turns around, and we see that it's Brackett. But then they just put that scene again, but added like a sting to it, and just see like, do you see how less effective that is when you now are seeing like, this is what you have to be afraid of, just like the sheriff of Haddonfield. So like getting back to Insidious, it's just like every time you have a sting like that or a jump scare, like it's earned, it's built up. Like the one where she goes into the baby's room and there's the figure standing behind the what do you call it, a bassinet or just the
crib?
Well, there's like
what the baby sleeps in, like but it's got like some awning on it or something like that, like a mosquito net, I guess. But
mosquito net.
It looks like it.
I just wanted to say bassinet.
Okay, cool. But I mean, one thing that I love is I don't even think about this so much as a movie that's comprised of jump scares so much as moments that jolt you, and there's a difference. Because so much of the loud, jarring moments are actual threats. Like, I mean, and I mean, they might be accompanied by music and might not, but I mean, but that's not the lion's share of what scares you. It's not like every time you get scared, it's going to be this at you. It's like sometimes it is more silent, and that's why from the get-go, that's why I watched this movie to get scared at night, because just the sound of like the Joseph Bishara's like incredible score, just like all of those winding, swirling strings with all of the loud clangs, like just metal kind of like clanging and clunking against each other and everything like that. There's like precision meeting imprecision, and there's this imbalance that is caused, and both of them feel malicious. And so there's like, I feel like audibly I'm being disoriented from the very beginning before I've even seen anything. And then the fact, I don't know, everything about it's all a seduction for me, because then we move into this globe, and one thing that I love that directors can do is when they create visual interest without context. Like, you just see this orb, and at first thing I always think when I see it, because I watch it often, but not like every week or everything like that, but I always kind of think like street lamp, and then because it's turned upside down, so it looks like the part that's powering the orb is underneath, and then it spins you around and you realize, oh yeah, it's the lamp that's hanging from I was gonna say Dalton, but from Josh's room. Okay, cool. But hey kitten. But also then the fact that it's followed by, you mentioned the title sequence, but I wanted to go back to the opening credits again, just to also feel like there's something about the fact that we're being shown these environments that we're going to inhabit later. Something about seeing them in mostly still form makes it feel like this is something that has already happened, and it just kind of feeds that fire for me of like the campfire story, like the history is being uncased. Like, I feel like I'm like photographs figure very significantly in this movie, and I feel like it's already making me afraid of pictures that have been taken.
Gosh. You just made me think of
what?
the opening to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003.
There's a difference.
No, but just the way that you described it, I just thought of that because I know how you feel about that one and that opening. But,
it would have been different if it would have been like newspaper clippings.
Yeah.
Like old headlines, like,
the Lambert
child
family.
Haunted by... That would have completely just sucked all of the tension out of it. Instead, it's just kind of showing you atmosphere. Because also, that's another thing that I love about the movie. It scares me the way I was scared when I was a little boy. I remember how it would feel when you can just kind of walk into a room and it's unfamiliar, and you don't trust it because it feels like something's off. And whether it's justified or not, like whether it's just you, like, in your mind is just fucking with you, or there is something justifiably off and you're responding to it, or any, where in the gray area in between. You are legitimately scared as a child, and all the rationalizing in the world can't get you to disbelieve that, like, it's not even about disbelief at that point. It's about, no, my body is having a physical reaction. I can feel like my heart is pumping faster, or I'm tense. I'm not relaxed, and I can't try to. The more I try to, the more I feel like I'm lying to myself in a way that you probably can't even articulate to yourself when you're a kid. And that's kind of what it opens up for me from the get-go, using all of these senses.
Interestingly, like, paranormal experts say that young children and animals are more susceptible to seeing paranormal things. I don't know if that's just like an easy excuse because, like, they're not, animals are obviously not capable of, relaying that to us in a way that we can understand, and small children as well, like, or at least like their brains aren't developed, enough to relay that to adults. But I have this memory of I couldn't even tell you how old I was. Like probably maybe younger than 7, we'll say. It might have even been younger than that. And I lived with my mother. We lived in this apartment in Toronto, and I just remember one night, because I'd never really have been able to sleep well, and I would always have my door open, kind of thing, because like I'm terrified to like be in my room and close my door.
Yes.
I still don't do that. I mean, like I live in like a big apartment by myself, but I still leave the door open because there's no need to close my bedroom door. But even like back then, I think the only time in my life where I ever did close my door is like when I was a teenager or I had roommates, and I'd have my door open, and I just remember one night seeing what I assumed was my mother just kind of like pacing back and forth down the hallway, back and forth, and I don't know her to sleepwalk, and she's never been known to sleepwalk or just tell me these things. And I just remember seeing this. It was like a woman, or at least who I thought like appeared to be a woman in like a white, wearing white, maybe like a nightgown or something. And after a long enough period of time of them pacing, I just kind of got out of bed and probably sat up and was like, "Mom, is that you?"
Oh no. Jesus.
And this figure just kind of stopped in my doorway, turned towards me, and didn't really like come into the room all the way, but just sort of like halfway through the door was just kind of standing there, maybe for like a minute, and then backed out and disappeared into the hallway. And I never saw it again. And I think like I sat there like freaked out for, maybe 5 minutes. And then I went into my mom's room, and I was just like, she's sleeping. I'm like, wake up, wake up, wake up. And it's just like, what? Like, what is going on? I'm just like, what were you doing in my room? And she's like, I wasn't in your room, blah, blah, blah. Like, go to sleep. And I think like, I asked her about it. I get like, days later at some point, I was just kind of like, so was that you? Like, why were you like walking down the hall? And she's just, I think at one point she admitted that it was her. She said, yeah, I did that or something. Like, I just was trying to, make sure you were asleep or something. But I don't like, she said it in a way that it just sounded like she was lying to me to make me feel better. That I don't know. And at this point now, like if I ever bring up that memory to her, that was so long ago, like that was like 30 years ago, she would just say to me like, I have no memory of that. So it's like, it's so far back in time that she couldn't tell me. Like, yeah, I mean, I hope like, I just like, have this idea of my mom, she's just fucking with me. Maybe she knew that I had trouble sleeping, and she thought that, if she did something to freak me out, it would make me like force me to want to sleep or something. But
Oh my God.
to this day, like I just like I vividly have that memory, and I think it's just the fact that I don't know, because if that was her, she did it so well. Like I could not see the face of this figure in my doorway, even though they were so close to me. And it's like at this point I don't know, because she doesn't remember. So right. It was very unsettling for me.
Yeah, I luckily don't have, because I would have pissed and pooped my pants.
Okay.
And I've been in your situation. I wouldn't have been able to withstand something like that. I was scared enough of my nightlight and my stuffed animals when I went to bed as a kid. I was so scared of everything, but still wanted to, watch horror movies and and I was fascinated by them and enjoyed being scared. But it would also back up on me sometimes and be like, "You're scared now," and it'd be like, "But I don't want to be." Well, that's too bad. I'm like, ah! And just I have so many memories of like not being able to get back to sleep after I woke up out of a nightmare. So I just lay there clenched, and not even keep my eyes open, because like some unwritten rule in my head said, if you lay there with your eyes open, you're gonna see something, and you don't want to see anything. So shut your eyes, but don't shut them like too tight, because then you're gonna get tired, and then you're gonna have to open them again. So just try to relax your eyes. I mean, like literally talking myself off the ledge. But any supernatural or unexplainable experiences that I've had have been in relative adulthood. And I don't know if I want to unpack them all here, but but I mean, I had a really, really weird situation connected with my mother. Because this is the house that I grew up in, and my mother and I occupy it, and we're renovating it. We've done all the common areas, and we're about to do the bedrooms before, the lockdown hit. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess we're just going to stay here and can't really renovate. Well, whatever. But at some point, I don't even remember exactly when it was. I think it was prior lockdown, and I had worked a long day, and it was dark. I came home. The house is pretty well lit. I'm standing in we have an archway. Like once you walk in, there's kind of a vestibule, and there's an archway, and then you have like the dining room and the kitchen. And she was seated in the dining room, basically, kind of like you can see it from the front door. I come in the front door. I drop my stuff. I stand in the archway, and to my left, in my periphery, I can see the hallway leading to the bedrooms. So I'm standing there just talking to her, just unpacking my day. Not particularly scared or anything like that. Just talking, like people. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see something move, and I turn. And the hallway is well lit, like, the lights are on. Mm-hmm. And I look down, and I see passing from her bedroom, which is across from mine, into my bedroom, is a silhouette. And it's like a shadow, but it's not like if you cast a shadow on something, you can see that it's up against a wall. This was like a shadow that stood maybe a good foot or so in front of the wall or in front of the closet, in between our two rooms. So I just kind of saw this weird scrim, like this dark outline. It looked to me like a woman, had like a long train. I don't know if it was a bride or if it was just ghostly, I don't know, ectoplasm just kind of like backing her up or whatever. Yeah. But she just kind of glided or glid, whatever the word is, from my mother's room into mine silently. And I just watched her. Like at first it was in the periphery when she first moved in, like a person. And then I looked and I saw her going into my bedroom, and I just kind of stood there. And my mom was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, and I didn't know how to tell her because it freaked me out.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, and I'm like, I'm an adult. Like, I'm not supposed. Like, what is happening? And who are you? And why is this the first time I've ever seen you? Yeah. And why aren't I more scared? Like, I'm thrown off my game, so I can't really talk. But I don't want to. I don't have it in me to like panic right now, to be all like, "Oh my god, I get so!" Because it was just a person passing through and everything. But I perceived. I don't know. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. I have no idea. But it's unexplainable. And I did sleep in my room that night. I did, because I turned on the light and I was just kind of like, okay. I just, again, like with people, I just kind of told myself, well, what if, ghosts are just like people and they just kind of like hang out, and sometimes, like they say in The Others, sometimes the world of the living gets mixed in with the world of the dead. And I'm like, what if ghosts are just like regular people? Like some of them can be assholes, but most of them are okay, Like I don't feel like everyone's an asshole every time I leave my home, so why would I think this ghost means me any harm when there's no reason to believe so? Maybe she was just passing through.
Or
I haven't seen her since.
Maybe it's like a living person who's astral projecting.
Or that.
Yeah.
It was nighttime. People could have been asleep. I thought you said it was day. No, it was nighttime.
Okay,
it was dark outside.
It was just a brightly lit hallway. Okay, yeah. Because I mean, like, even thinking back to my experience, maybe that was my mom just like astral projecting through her sleep. But I don't know. That's going to go down as like, it's just going to be an unsolved mystery of my life, unfortunately. Yeah, but I've definitely, because I don't know if I mentioned this before on the podcast, but I used to work in a nightclub that was haunted. The building that it was in was haunted. And specifically there were two ghosts there, and I worked there for a long time, and had very few encounters, but you know, a lot of my coworkers had their own story, which were, you know, some of them were a lot more terrifying than what I had. But I did see a shadowy figure, you know, move through into like a stairwell. One time there was definitely, you know, I heard a lot of noises, and this is off hours, obviously. Like there's no one there other than me and maybe other, like a few other employees who at the time weren't even in the building, like they were out back. And I just remember, like, it was always in the stairwell where I would hear or see anything. So that was kind of like the hot area, I guess, the hot spot. Okay. But just like hearing like someone, you know, because it's multi-levels, and just hearing like stomping going up the stairs, and you go to like the top of the stairs, and it's a double door that's sealed, like it's locked because there's a different business upstairs. So there's like, you know, you'd hear someone going upstairs, and I would run up just to see, like, you know, what does it look like, or is it even still there? And like nobody there. So just a lot of crazy shit like that, for sure. But I mean, like, I attribute that to, like, you know, that's the actual building being haunted. It's not like, you know, me as a person or as a child being haunted by, you know, whatever I saw when I was 6 or 7 or however old. So just, I think just, you know, to kind of bring it back to the movie, that's absolutely something that I think is very effective and terrifying on that level for me. And I especially kind of like that memory was triggered for me when the other kid, not Dalton, but, you know, the one that they
Foster
care less about.
His name is Foster. I caught it for the first time. I've seen this movie, I don't know how many times, and I'm watching it today. I was just kind of like, oh, I made a kind of a joke in my head, like, oh, what if he really is like a foster child, and they just never thought to name him like an actual name? He's just Foster to them. Because, I mean, he is kind of like the child left behind, like, and voluntarily so. It really breaks my heart to see this sweet kid hiding, kind of half hiding his achievements at school because he doesn't want to rock the boat, and because, you know, like, the house is a sad place, and that seems like very realistically child kind of like mentality, like, you know, like the way they would kind of like see it, but also just kind of putting out there in plain view just in case anybody sees it and wants to congratulate me, you know, like I got a reward at school.
I mean, so well, to just speak to foster children, because I don't want that to, you know, leave a bad taste in anyone's mouth, because foster children, like, the thing that we have to remember about them is that they're chosen. You know, this is family that you chose, and there's always, you know, like a love behind that. So I wouldn't attribute someone being named Foster just like the child left behind being a foster. But their second son is definitely an afterthought in this movie, and it even got to a point, like, because the kids disappeared altogether, and I guess they were staying at grandma's house, but then she was like back at, like, with them during the investigation, and there was no mention of just like who's watching our kids.
No. But I think they knew I mean, I don't know how many screenings it took me before I finally kind of wondered, oh yeah, the kids. Yeah. Like, I'm always kind of like on the ride with them, just going along with the adults in pursuit of the truth at that point.
I'm fine with them not being there, but with him in particular, because he had that scene where, you know, the one that you're talking about with the picture and all that, and then he says to Renee, that Renee, sorry, he wants to move rooms because he's not comfortable, or he's just scared being so close to Dalton's.
I don't like it when Dalton walks around at night.
Yeah. And at first, like, when I was watching it again, because, you know, it had been so long, I was just like, oh, so is he just like getting up in his sleep and walking around and no one can see it? And then, you know, I guess like that was explained with like the astral projecting or something. But then that also made me think, like, well, if he's so close to his body at this point, why doesn't he just go back? He's not lost if he's walking around the halls.
I didn't think it was Dalton at all. I thought it was the lipstick demon practicing the puppetry, the manipulation of the body.
So he had gone into him because
he hadn't gone into him because he hadn't gone into him, but he would like pick him up and just kind of walk him around because he likes puppets.
Okay.
So that's what I thought he was doing. He was kind of walking Dalton's body around the house at night when it was quiet, when they could be kind of like uninterrupted.
Yeah.
And little did he know Foster was laying there. Maybe little did he care that Foster was laying there witnessing the entire thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what headcanon.
No, that's fair. And you know what? That you might be completely right. I don't think that there was a commentary. There might have been, but I didn't listen to it if there was. So maybe that is spoken to on the track. But that is a very good headcanon if it's not explicitly stated or at least suggested.
Alluded to.
Yeah.
That's the strongest I'll give it.
Yeah. I just remember the only thing I remember because he disappeared, but that scene where when they move into the new house and she's just kind of going through, because she goes into the son's room and it's a disaster, and there's like a food plate on the bed and there's like crumbs and she's just like cleaning up after him. I'm just like, okay, so this is why they don't pay attention to him, because he's kind of a slob. But that.
Oh, that's the reason.
Yeah.
Why.
Well, no, he's the black sheep because he has a messy room and like eats food in the bed and just leaves his shit there.
Well, I also wondered because you called him the second son, but which I think he is as far as the ranking, because he's also the one that the movie.
I mean, like the second oldest.
I thought
not the ranking.
Oh no, I thought he was older. I thought I got the impression that he was the older kid. I don't know. Isn't he taller than him too? But I got the impression that he was older, and because I got the impression that like Dalton is kind of like still, even though they have a baby, he's still kind of like also the baby, like the way it is when you have a new baby and you have to kind of like rationalize like you've been the baby up until now. But now we have a new baby, so you both have to kind of simultaneously be the baby until you've gotten used to being the big brother kind of thing. That's just what I read, but I don't know who's actually
maybe
older.
Maybe it's established in 2, or maybe it'll be established in the new one, because it's the same actor who's they're both coming back. Ty Simpkins is born 2001. There's no birth date, even though like actor birth dates don't necessarily correlate to the character birth dates, but there's no date listed for Andrew Astor, who plays Foster Lambert.
It's just what I always read. It doesn't mean that's right.
I don't know. You know what, they might not even know. Whatever the case is, like they're very close in age, if that. But just as far as the children go, like I don't mind that they were kind of like disappeared towards the end, because I think, a lot of the times when you have kids in a horror movie, they're a bit much. And I even like the baby crying a lot through like the earlier parts. I was just kind of like, okay, can we just, because we already got like the Joseph Bishara score, which is like kind of disturbing enough as it is. Like I don't need a baby crying on top of it.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, no love lost there, but
I just feel bad. I'm just glad Callie doesn't have to be in the line of fire, because that's something to absorb, that kind of like that kind of exposure to whatever supernatural goings on are happening in that house before memory. Like that shit you're gonna carry, and I don't envy her at all.
Because she? This is the only question I'll ask about the sequel. So, does the sequel take place immediately after? Is it like a Halloween 2 situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Insidious 2 is
No, fair enough. Okay, so she's still a baby in that, and then we'll probably be, I guess like a 10 or 11-year-old girl in this new one. So. I lost my thought. You go on with the next.
Okay.
No. Actually, I remember what I was gonna say.
Okay, go for it.
Because we're talking about the baby. The monitor part, like that, actually genuinely freaks me out, because it's like full on like audible, like speaking, and I couldn't hear exactly what was being said. Like, do you know what?
I mean, I think Billy in Black Christmas was more discernible than this particular. What
Yeah.
I think they called him like angry, long-haired fiend is the name of that particular.
Do we know that was him though?
deity.
Just because
I assumed it was because he
standing
seemed to
behind
have
the
like
bassinet.
Yeah, he seemed to have a weird fascination with her and with the bassinet. You love that word.
It's just because I'm thinking back to the finale of Angel when Spike is taking the baby out and he's just like place the child back in the bassinet.
Wow, it's just you were beaming. I'm just reacting because it's just like bassinet, and then if you could see Zach's beam,
Bassinet,
if you're listening to us, check us out on YouTube because you want to see Zach beaming when he says bassinet.
Yeah, and if you want to see Edward just like frozen in space and time,
watch any of the episodes.
That's currently what your image is projecting. No,
watch
okay.
any of the episodes. But what I always perceived that the long-haired fiend apparition had some kind of like morbid fascination with the child, and that screaming that because he was going on. I don't know what it was, but it was something about like when he started to actually articulate what he was saying. It was something along the lines of like, I want it, I want it. Yeah. And then so I don't know. I was wondering if maybe if they could all astrally project, or if because like one of them could actually project, maybe he thought the baby could, and maybe the idea of like being raised in this loving home was something, so he had this urgency of like, give me your life, I want it, I want it, like, I don't know, but maybe he was just angry, maybe he was just
I thought
rageful.
It seemed like he was more so infatuated with Renee, because there was the scene when she was sleeping alone in the bedroom and you see him kind of like pacing, was it like outside of the window, and then he was suddenly inside. And then like approached her, and then there was that scene later on during the seance and he like comes up to her and like licks her face. So it seemed more that he was, getting after her.
Well, it seems like he started with the baby and then found Renee.
Well, maybe because like being where the baby was like a way to like draw her to him.
Maybe.
But
maybe.
Yeah, because it wasn't like all I really got from like the way that Elise explains it is that like all these spirits are sensing that there's this body and they want into it. Yeah. Just specifically Dalton, because he's in the further, whereas like Foster and what's the I'm just gonna say baby. I don't know her name.
Callie.
Whatever.
Her name is
Callie. They're obviously present there, so the spirits wouldn't be able to inhabit her. But you bring up an interesting point, or just idea, because of just like speaking to like what was his deal as a spirit, because I wouldn't be surprised if James Wanell, there I go again.
There you go.
James Wan, Lee Wanell, kind of came up with little backstories for all of these ghosts. Because when they get to the further, and this is a question I actually had for you.
Yeah.
Because the further, or like the deepest nether regions of the further were in their old house, or like the house that they had first moved into. And it made me wonder, is like, was this a haunted house? Like, was there like a murder committed here? Because you see the one ghost shoot their family all sitting on the couches.
Yeah.
That it made me think that maybe that it was kind of a combination of like this was a house where murder had happened, or is it just sort of like these residual memories that live on in these characters, and it doesn't really matter where they are, because the further is not really a definitive place. It's just a representation of our subconscious, and that's why for Dalton, since the house that he left his body in would be the place that he's projecting, or more so familiar with, because even at the end when they go back to their new house, because I was thinking like, don't you know where your body is? And I remembered like, no, he's never been in this house, because he was opening like every bedroom door trying to find himself while he was being chased by the demon. There's like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. He wouldn't be familiar with this place. He's never been there.
Right.
Spiritually.
Okay. I'm really, really glad to hear you ask that question, because I don't know if I've ever gotten into this with anybody, but the whole thing about the further is there are a lot of things that, on top of what's already explained, I feel like intuitively I just kind of go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like the way you navigate through it, because you brought up subconscious, I never thought of the further as that, because it almost kind of science-izes it, if that's a word. It's not a word, but I mean, it almost makes it like too science-y and too like kind of like about like our ability. How can I put this? Like our I guess our realms of consciousness, as if they're all contained within our head. What the further seemed like to me was a level of the afterlife, whatever happens after we die, where if you are a ghost, you can realm there, and you can basically kind of like just wander around. Now, the places that you're most likely to kind of like come in contact with and be able to perceive are places you have lived, because you know them better than, like, it's easier for you to walk through the front door of your house, you know what that is, than it would be for you to walk through the door of your neighbor's house, unless you were like best friends with your neighbor, or when you were a kid, if you were like best friends with your neighbor next door, and you had sleepovers all the time, and you spent just as much time in their house as they did in yours and everything like that, and you died very young, so most of your life was spent in another. But I feel like the most familiar spaces are where you tend to kind of like gravitate to, or even attract. And even if you can get lost in the nothingness, the vast expanse that is shapeless, that is just kind of like that mist and that green-blue lighting, because that's kind of what happens to Josh when he leaves the house he's being hypnotized in. And then once he encounters who he thinks is Dalton and follows him, he realizes he's confronted by his younger self, which tells me, and there's no spoilers, but there's things in the franchise after this that back this up. It tells me that time is kind of a human construct that we have in this particular realm of consciousness that we call like waking life, but it's immaterial. We can time travel isn't something that you need like a skill for or anything like that. If you're living in the vast expanse of the further, you can move through time the way you can move through like zip codes. And I feel like one Josh had an intuitive reaction to another Josh, knew he needed to be guided somewhere, and just knew, you're familiar with that, just go in that direction, and wordlessly sends him there. So he goes in that direction, encounters his house, and encounters the other people who have occupied that house, who probably occupied it the whole time. And we got to see like their unmaking, but there was also that other ghost that he followed up the steps, the kind of weeping bride, the silent weeping bride who goes up the steps to follow. And I don't know what happened to her. So I feel like, this is all, again, king of headcanon, but it's the way I kind of rationalize like this thing. Like I'm not coming at this as like a full devout believer in the supernatural or the afterlife or life after death or anything like that. But I'm also not thumbs downing the whole concept. I'm just kind of thinking, well, what makes sense? And enough of what I'm granted in this movie makes sense to me that I don't have a problem kind of filling in the blanks, I guess.
Yeah, because you can kind of like take the further, and it's just like it's another one of, it's like the upside down, or just like that kind of idea or device that is used in stories. And I think like the further, what's interesting about it is that it's not really defined like that. Mm-hmm. And even Elise says, like, she's like, right off the bat when she comes to the house and she sees what she sees, and Lee Winnell, who plays Specs, draws it, and she's having the conversation, which when she says it's like, it's not the house that's haunted, it's your son, but she just says like, I just want you to know that like these are my beliefs.
Yes.
So it's almost like she doesn't even fully know what it is.
Yeah. She's
headcanoning it herself of just what she thinks is just what makes the most sense to her. What makes her feel better, as Allison in Halloween 2018 would say. But no, I like there. It leaves an air of mystery to it, which I like. I just wish that like kind of the execution of the further was maybe handled a little better, because like I said, that was the part where I kind of dipped out. And what's interesting is that in the featurette, James says that he was inspired by Dario Argento films to kind of create this, I guess specifically the lipstick face demon, as they call him, like his workshop, which was just kind of like they changed. It was the same layout as like the house, the foyer that they lived in, but kind of like really it was like everything was like so much more ornate. It was just like bathed in red light. There was like gold and everything in like the bars, like the cages and all that. And I mean, I never once while watching it was like, oh, Dario Argento, because like I'm a huge Dario Argento fan, that I never really made that correlation.
Yeah, me
what
neither.
I was getting was Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Oh, okay.
Like the end of that movie, which very similarly, where we have Heather, going down to get Miko Hughes, Dylan, which even looking at him, just like Ty Simpkins, like does remind me a lot of Miko Hughes. Like they kind of have like maybe it's just because they're like a child of that similar age, but they have like
with
kind of like the same
haircut,
the same haircut, just the very similar appearance. So I was getting a lot of like the end of New Nightmare there, of just like the parent coming to take the child out of the nightmare and come back to reality. And I liked that aspect of it, but I don't know. It just I wish that they kind of, that's because I mean I and I don't want to speak too much on New Nightmare, because that's another movie that it's been a while since I've seen, and we're making our way through that franchise slowly. But I remember that being such a grandiose set piece, like just sort of like Freddy's like demonic lair, and like the almost like the water thing that she falls out of to land there, and it seems so much more like that, just the scope of it so much bigger, like kind of just the horror of it. It was very operatic, where here it's like I felt that they were trying to do that, but it didn't, like the execution just didn't work for me.
Okay, see, for me, even just you brought up the further, and now we're discussing the Lipstick Demon's Lair. One thing that I appreciate about the way both of them were handled, I mean, the further is a much bigger, broader environment, but the way both of them were handled is kind of like the minimalism with which, like the way you kind of do a lot with a little, like I said before, like a lot of the further is just kind of like a fog machine and lighting and actors who are behaving in a particular way. And then when we get to the Lipstick Demon's Lair, I actually think the simplicity works a little bit better in this movie than in New Nightmare, because I don't feel like I'm necessarily looking at a set. I do feel like I'm looking at a lair. But I mean, another thing that occurred to me while I was watching it this time that never... And this is another thing I love about this movie. I've seen it as many times as I have, and I still get new thoughts when I revisit it. I always kind of was upset at Josh's line to Dalton when he goes to rescue him, and it's right before he kind of like breaks the chains, and he tells him, it's okay, I want you to know none of this is real, okay? And I remember I always used to get angry at him, because I'd think like, oh, just typical parent lying to the child. The child's going to know this is real. He's going to remember this. It's like,
Sue's mom.
Exactly. Sue's mom thinking that like she's young enough that she'll forget all about it. It's Joe Beth. Oh, because also there's poltergeist references all over this movie as well. Yeah. But in it's Joe Beth Williams saying she doesn't seem to remember any of it. It's like, yeah, she does. And of course, you brought up The Exorcist, Reagan. Them saying like she doesn't seem to remember any of it. And then she sees the priest and like goes to him, and I'm like, she fucking remembers. She knows that somebody saved her life. But anyway, so. I remember getting upset about it, and this time, because he says it immediately upon breaking the shackles, I was like, what if he's not lying to him? What if it's all a construct? Like, what we experience as physical existing in this level of existing, which we call alive. When you die, what if everything is just kind of like manifest, and that's how the further you can kind of attract whatever environment you need to. You can just kind of like say my home, and then you're there. Or you can say, a demon can say my lair, and then it's there. And that's why it's so easy for Josh to break it apart. Also, I know that it's established that Josh is stronger than when he's fighting the long-haired fiend. He's hearing Elise tell him, like, you can fight him, you're stronger than he is, you are the one who is alive. And I loved that, because if I were ever in the further, I would need to know that, because it's like you got a little superpower in your belt, you know, like you're like, I'm alive though, I've still got like some kind of like connection to like a life force, to a physical being, a presence. You merely are kind of like the essence of it, the memory of it. So I'm gonna push you the fuck out of my way. So I feel like maybe because he knows that, maybe because he's alive, he knows he's more powerful in this realm than these things that have to kind of like assert dominance by making themselves as terrifying as possible. And that's what makes us weak. Oh, I love this movie.
I wanna put a pin in that part, just like just the Josh going into the further part, because I just want to address still what we were talking about, like the new nightmare of it all, because I think just to narrow down, now that you mentioned that, the thing, like, why the new nightmare stuff works for me, even though like it's a set, is because that was kind of, it's consistent with you know what the film had been doing. Whereas I feel throughout Insidious, a lot of everything it's very subtle. A lot of I mean, there's one part in particular that isn't, but like, you know, a lot of the things are understated throughout. And I think like one of the scariest parts for me, which is then undercut by what I just mentioned, is when the mother, or mother-in-law, the grandma, what's her name? Lorraine. When she comes over, when Barbara Hershey comes over and they're sitting at the table, and she's just, this part like really freaks me out, because she's just like, you know what, after I went home last night and I went to sleep and I had a dream, and and that kind of, not only does that make me think that she can also astral project, you know, that it's something that comes in the family, but that she's just so like specifically, you know, talking about detail of what she saw. And that was kind of the introduction to us of the lipstick face demon, and we don't see him. He's just this figure standing in the corner, just like, what do you want? And he points at Dalton. And I thought like that was so effectively creepy. And then immediately they have this shot, this brightly lit room that they're in, and you see the face of him. And I mean, he looks like Darth Maul from Star Wars Phantom Menace. It's been said. And and all I think is just like, okay, that took me out of it. Like, that's, you know, like you had just established this thing that is existing there, and now you've shown it to us in the harsh light of day right there. And I mean, I enjoy her reaction to it, and I enjoy them reacting to her reacting to it, but I don't enjoy seeing him there. And I feel like when we get to the further, and you have, it's almost like they've committed to, you know, this idea that, like, you know, like just we're not seeing everything. We just know that there's these entities, and they're trying to get into him. And, you know, in a dream, or what she supposed was a dream, she saw the figure standing in the darkness in the corner. And then we get to the further, and it's still like, you know, a lot of it is like the fog and the darkness. And then you just like full on have this like Freddy's workshop, that it's like, well, if you're gonna do this, like, just go all the way. And that's what I differentiate from that, and why I feel like it wasn't, like, it was just, they sort of teased it, but it wasn't enough. Like, at that point, if you're gonna go into the belly of the beast, like, go big. And you know, I know that you obviously don't share that opinion with me, and I'm sure a lot of listeners wouldn't either, but that's maybe what I what was lacking in the finale for me, that it didn't have that scope to it, where it just felt like it was kind of meandering once it got to the further in the third act.
Sure. No, I can see that. But it's just that moment, like, absolutely, the appearance of the lipstick demon after we hear the crackle, which, oh, fuck, that crackle of it. Oh, God. And then when she looks up and sees him, like, especially the first time I ever saw that movie when I had no idea it was coming, God, it fucked me up. God, it scared the shit out of me. And everything that followed, I agree with you, was executed very well as far as the reactions and everything. Yeah. But also another thing that I thought of even while I was watching it, because sometimes I just kind of go through, you know, the emotional obstacle course that these actors are going through in this movie with them. And I'm thinking, this is really, really good for Josh, because he can see someone other than his wife having this, you know, being this affected by something that he can't see and that he can't hear. He seemingly can't even really sense it, but he has to go on faith, and there's no scene between the two of them, between him and his mother, where he's telling her like, you know, that was nothing. You need to calm down. You're making my, you know, like, I mean, just like, okay, the wheels are still going forward.
I mean, he may as well have, but
no, because this is the thing. I feel like, again, like I touched on it earlier, and I feel like I don't feel like because if he were doing that, I feel like I would dislike him. But the thing is, in the face of like everything compounded on top of itself, it's one thing to take the words of, like, if I had a significant other and my mother both at me, like, saying this thing is happening, this thing is really happening, you need to do something, I'd be like, okay, cool, we'll do something about it. The second you invite other people who you do not know, you don't know what their agenda is, and they're talking about things that sounds like fanfic, or, you know, like, whatever. Yeah. I've got names for this thing, and I can see, and especially if you see your other half, because I want to touch on that too. You see your other half, your significant other, leaning in and buying into it, like their physical bodies, like she is leaning in and he is pulled back, he's not even making eye contact, and she is hanging on every word that Elise says, and I feel like she's the audience. But he's who a lot of us, I think, would be in real life, just because the moment needs us to think that we need to believe in what we're doing, and not just kind of say yes every step of the way. At a certain point, you need to draw a line in the sand and say, can we just talk? Can I just think? Can we just, because this feels wrong for me. That's what I feel like a lot of couples do, and why I'm not in one, is because, like, you have to put the brakes on things that nobody else wants you to, because it doesn't feel right for you, and you can't go forward with it until you're convinced it's the only option. And he does do that.
Can we? Okay, just hold on, because you've addressed so much, and I still need to like go back, because, you know, you're getting so excited here. But because I have a lot to respond to that. Just since this immediately was just what you're talking about, this is where I'll take the pen out, and we can talk about Josh, because I don't see it that way. I actually find him to be very frustrating in a way, because, you know, I don't think that he's unlikable. I think that, like, the script, particularly because it doesn't have scenes like that where it's, you know, he's, you know, being this skeptic where he's just sort of like, you know, like, no, you don't know what you're talking about, or like really drawing that out. But just the fact that it's even there and not really developed in those instances, like, that does grate on me a little bit. Because, I mean, it makes sense, you know, and it works for the script when his mom would just be like, no, you wouldn't remember, you know, yada, yada, yada. But it annoys me that he is being, like, this skeptical. Like, he's clearly, like, their son has been in this not coma for 3 months, and they have no answers. And here's something. It's a road to something, and, you know, there's, you know, things are given to him, and it's not like we don't really get a sense of, you know, what the relationship is between Lorraine and Renee, other than, like, they seem to be, you know, close. You know, she seems to, like, you know, as far as, like, a mother-in-law relationship goes, like, it's not the typical, like, you know, bullshit that you see in movies. Like, if anything, like, they're more on the same wavelength than she is with Josh.
Yes.
But I don't get a sense that they're, like, lunching together, and they're like going shopping and all this stuff, and they have this like
No.
bond that is separate
No.
from her relationship with Josh, that it makes me question that, like you said in the scene where it's just like, now Renee has been seeing things and reacting to them, and now the mom is having that same thing too, and it's like, it's not even the same house, it's a different house, and he's not even entertaining the idea of it. Like, he's just sort of like, no, this is all like, this is ridiculous sort of thing, like, get out of my house, yada yada yada. And it's just like, why that segment pissed me off is because it's like, we're slowing the movie down at this point. Like, we find, like, we're in the second act, we had Elise come in, she's laying it all out there, and I'm just like, awesome, like, let's go get him, like, go find your son sort of thing. And he's like, no, because he needs to have this moment for, I guess, character development. But it's so stupid, Edward. It's like, he goes into the son's room, and he's just standing there, and he has that moment with him, and then he looks over on like the picture board or whatever, and there's all these drawings of the shit, and it's like, all I could think of is like, have they been there the entire time? Like, this, because you have to remember, they moved, and he's been in a not coma since before, when they lived in the other house. So it's like, the parents, when they moved, they would have like intentionally taken these photographs and hung them on the wall, and they hadn't even seen them at that time. So what my headcanon was is that Renee and Lorraine, or maybe even Elise, maybe she was in on it, because I could see Lynn Shay like plotting with like all the ladies just coming around and being like, this is how we're gonna get them, and they all drew these pictures of just like the the imagery, and they hung it up there just for Josh to see it, because he was so easily swayed by that point. Like, that's the thing, it was like, it slowed the movie down to a point. Like, I'm glad that we didn't get all like the melodrama out of it, but it's still like, it felt so unnecessary, because there was a momentum building, and then it just like halted that just for this one little scene, and that's what annoyed me. And then even going beyond that with Josh, because I like the character, I like Patrick Wilson, I like his performance here, but he annoys me as a character because of that, but also before he goes into the further, Elise tells him, like, you need to essentially pretend to be one of them. You need to, like, don't interact with them in a way, like, if they get the sense that you are not, like, you don't belong there, they will know. They'll come after you. They'll come for your body, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, does not fucking heed any of her advice. He goes in there and he draws as much attention to himself as possible. He goes right up to their faces, like, hello, like, is anyone in there? It's just like, are you dense? Like, what are you doing, man? So that all pissed me off. And then we get to the part at the end, like, he's found Dalton. He's brought him back to the house, and he has this moment. It's almost like House on Haunted Hill, 1999,
your favorite.
No. This is a moment that you've criticized, and I'm going to criticize it here. When they get to the house, in House on Haunted Hill, when they go up to the attic, because like we think we found a way out, and Taye Diggs is kind of like he gets up there and he's like, oh, and he like walks over to something, and Allie Larder just kind of hangs back. She's just like, she's just so defeated, and it's just like, we're almost there. I'm just gonna like stay here for a second. And that's when the spirit kind of like sneaks up behind her and goes to grab her, and then Jeffrey Rush's character has to like look out and push her out of the way, and then that's how he dies. And here it's like, they get into the back door, they go through the kitchen, and Dalton's like, come on, Dad, and he's just like, okay, just a minute. Like, it's just like, you're not like you're a fit dude. First of all, you're not even like in a physical realm, but you're like, he's like exasperated. He's like, you go ahead, sort of thing, to leave his son to fend for himself against this demon, while he like turns around and starts interacting with this woman, or who's been like haunting him his entire life.
Is the way she's built.
Old woman. And it's just like, it felt so like needlessly forced in that way. Like, it just like it was written, and this is another problem that I have with the finale. It's just like how it's just like we have to conveniently separate them, and it didn't need to happen.
Oh, see, okay. I can understand that, and if that's your experience, it's absolutely valid. That said, it's not my experience, because what I get in that moment, I am so the movie's bitch at that point that I'm just kind of like, oh, and they're going to be, like, I see them get separated. I see him say, like, Dalton, you have to go on, and Dalton keeps running. I'm like, that's right, because Dalton can't face the lipstick demon with his father. He has to face this demon head on, and he has to have his own finale. And what happens? Josh immediately sees his own childhood oppressor and feels the need to confront that as well. So I feel like it just feels kind of like, again, like somebody's telling me a fairy tale or something like that. And then the father and the son separated, and each one was confronted with, their own figure of oppression. And the son was victorious, but the father was not. Like it felt very proverbial to me. Like I dug it totally.
But the problem is, though, that we don't see any of that. We don't see Dalton like go back into his body. We just see in like the regular living world that all of a sudden he wakes up. So we don't actually, but we don't
can't show Dalton going back into his body, because then we're going to be wondering, well, then why didn't we see Josh go back into his body? They want there to be some ambiguity there.
But but I don't like that. No, but I understand that. But it's just like, but you're speaking to the fact that they have to confront their demons separately.
Yeah.
And, when I think of a confrontation, I think of, like an actual, like, we're going to see something, and there's nothing. Like, it doesn't really, we don't get that kind of, you're speaking of this, like, there's this build up to something, and it's not there. It's very anticlimactic in a way. And it's, you literally have Josh, on the other hand, like, yelling at this old woman to go, get out, go away, yada, yada, yada. And like that, I think it's like, there's a twist at the end, which is great. Like, I think that the ending capper works effectively, but in that moment where it's just like, we're fighting for our lives, we're trying to get back to us, it didn't strike me the way that it obviously did for you. Like, well,
I'm not cheering Josh on or anything. Like, I'm not sitting there going like, yeah, Josh, face off with her. I'm thinking, no, I get why you're doing this, but now is not the time, bro. But I'm not criticizing the movie from like a critiquing standpoint. I'm engulfed in the action going, no, don't do that. I'm just caught up. Yeah. And I guess it just works for me.
Okay, that's fair. So, okay, that was the one thing that just to immediately address, like, the Josh of it all. The other thing, because we were like talking about the jump scare, just like how that worked for you with, the crackling and seeing the demon behind him sort of thing. And it just like, I didn't find that scary at all. Like I said, like the reactions were effective, but like I more so responded to the scenes. Like, there were a few that were really well done. I think like when the long-haired dude is standing behind the bassinet, and but like we're but no,
and you smile like a Cheshire cat
because it's funny. It's funny to me. But like Josh going downstairs and the door being open, and like just all that kind of like that poltergeisty play of it all, like that was effective. Sure. That worked for me. The scene with the child, when even if we don't see him standing there, like just the way that it's shot, really, of just sort of like the cinematography in that scene, where she goes outside, she's taking out the trash or the recycling, and we're kind of following her through the house, and we hear like the record scratch and like the changing, and she's like, we're kind of like going through the window at that point, and she's like noticing like something's off, like what's going on, and then that creepy music comes on, like that you started
the Tiny Tim music.
Tiny Tim. And I had to look it up on YouTube of just like him performing, and it's because I just assumed it was a woman performing that song. Like, no. Yeah, just like a very like old timey like tiptoe through, and I just to like seeing him, like he looks very unsettling. There's just something about his just the way about him, and it makes it like, having seen that and then like listening to the music in the movie in the context of like this ghost child dancing to it, of just like her seeing it, like that's even more creepy. But it was already creepy as it was on the level of like seeing it in the movie and hearing it, and just like how, she sees this child dancing, and I was like, I remember the first time I saw it, I was just like, so is that Dalton? I wasn't sure. And then like another moment when she goes in, and I love how James Wan does this thing where he's like taking our attention, like it's very Wes Craven of him, taking our attention, and we're looking at this side of the screen because the door's like suddenly shutting by itself, and she's looking at that, and then all of a sudden the child like comes running out from the other side. Like that is effective to me. And and then they do it again. They get us again when she's like, thinking that she has the hockey stick, he's underneath the thing, and then jumps out of the thing, and it's just like at that point, it's like
laughing.
I'm done.
Yeah. And also that's the thing. Another thing, I don't know why children ghosts are, I don't know, I can't even say they're creepier, but they're their own particular brand of creepy for me. That feels creepier, but I don't know if it actually is, but it's very distinct. And the laughter, I don't know what it is about the laughter from ghost children that will always be an unsettling concept to me. I'll tell you one more. It's not my ghost story, but I was kind of adjacent to it. I went, this is going to sound ridiculous, and it's probably not even a ghost story, but it's unexplainable. I went to P.F. Chang's, the restaurant chain that we have out here. I don't know if you have it in Canada. And it's just, like, I think it's like quasi-Chinese cuisine.
I'm familiar,
Okay, cool. Yeah, you can unwrap your rice and the lettuce leaf and shit. And I went with my best friend, Bonnie. And Bonnie is... She grew up watching horror movies as well, but more the mainstream ones, and she never really pursued them. But if, like Jaws and Poltergeist and stuff like that kind of stuff she had seen growing up. And she was, even if she was scared of it while she was watching it, she never carried any of that shit to the bedroom with her. She never had nightmares about it. She was never terrorized by any images she took in that were, rooted in horror movies, that, or anything like that. Whereas me, I'm the scaredest kid in the world. And so this person who to this day is like that, I've only ever seen her afraid of something quasi-supernatural once in our entire friendship, and I've known her since I was 16 and she is 17. We go to P.F. Chang's just to have, again, like a totally casual dinner, just hanging out, talking, not talking about anything scary, didn't see a horror movie that night. She goes to the ladies' room, and she comes back, and her energy has shifted. And I'm like, you okay? What's going on? And because I'm thinking something happened in the ladies' room, somebody freaked her out or something, and but somebody alive. She's just like, I can't explain what just happened. Can we go? And I'm like, yeah. Okay, let's pay the check. I'm gonna wait outside. But no, I won't. Come with me. I'm like, okay. Let me just pay the check, and let's do it on the way out. So I get the check, and we go out. I'm like, what happened? And she's outside. It's like she can breathe again. And she's like, I went in the ladies' room, and I heard water sloshing around, and it sounded like there was a struggle. And I don't know what was going on, but there was laughter, and it was like a child's laughter. And immediately my gut told me, this child's drowning another child. Like it sounded like playful, but like kind of sadistically so. And I'm like going to the bathroom. I'm trying to go as fast as I can because I'm like, what is going on? Is somebody like piping in like a horror movie or something like that? But it sounded like right there. It was like the next stall over. I didn't see anything. I got out of the stall. I washed my hands. I looked behind me and I looked in the mirror. No feet underneath. No nothing. There's nobody in there. And I just heard like a child drowning someone and laughing about it. I heard the bad seed. And I was like, oh my God, what is... and she's like, and I don't know what it was. I'm not going to pretend I know. I'm just glad I'm out of there. Let's go have the rest of our evening. And I'm like, okay. Oh my gosh. And every now and then we still reference children laughing. And I because I understood intuitively, I'm like, I can't hear, like, I mean, even creepier than what I just did. But I don't know what it is about happy ghost children. It's just kind of like, oh God, not around me. No. So that, because I mean, it's playful. He's playing hide and seek. It should be endearing and sweet. It's not. And the fact that it's happening during the day, after everything I said about like watching the movie during the day and it not quite working, the scares not working quite as well as they do when I watch it late at night. I still appreciate the fact that there are hauntings going on during the day. That's another reason why, as what you might call from here on out the Darth Maul moment, the reveal of the lipstick demon behind Barbara Hershey, or behind, when Barbara Hershey sees it behind Josh, Patrick Wilson. Another reason that it works on me is because it's an unexpected terrain. Like, he should not be there. He is a demon. He's supposed to be up in the dark corner of the ceiling where, where Lin Shaye is having him being drawn by specs and everything like that. He's not supposed to be just hanging out behind the handsome guy who's sitting at the table silently listening to the story of your nightmare, or your astral projection, which I choose to believe is what it actually is. So
it's just funny that they're talking about astral projection, and it just, they already know that, like, Dalton is doing it, and then she says, well, you did it too as a child, and then for her to like not put the pieces together. That's another frustrating thing about her character, Lorraine, actually, because it's like her lack of presenting this information sooner, it just like it leads to so much more. And I think at that point, like, she already, like, there's actually a very specific line that's spoken between the two women when we first are introduced to Lorraine, because she says, like, I have no idea what you're going through. Like, she says nobody can understand what you're going through. And it's just like, but you can, and you've been there. And it's maybe not in the specifics, because like Josh didn't have, he wasn't gone from his body, but she's experienced this supernatural thing, and she's now seeing that, something similar is happening with her daughter-in-law. And it's like, come on, like, she could have told her this stuff, because she knows that, like, this is something that she can probably confide in Renee, because she's going to believe her. She's like open to believing anything at that point of just understanding what it could be. And they're like, literally, like, she's calling in like her old friend Elise for this reason, and then it's just like she waits until now to tell Josh that, like, and show him the pictures. I mean, I get that it's convenient for the plot, but it just like
I mean, I get such a reward with that exchange between Lorraine and Renee, because number one, we already brought up kind of like the tried, tired trope of, like, the battle axe mother-in-law who's, very territorial over her son, and, just wants to nudge the wife out and everything like that. And we get to see, like, her being incredibly supportive, but also just like, with her, the way she says it to her, no one can understand what you're going through, and you do whatever you have to get through it, was, I thought, all Renee could really receive at that particular juncture. And I was grateful that at least Renee was getting some very strong reinforcement of relying on herself and what she's perceiving, and knowing, no, what I'm doing is right. I'm not losing my mind. I just need to do what makes sense to me, because that's another thing. Lorraine doesn't exactly, like you said, Lorraine doesn't know enough to really give her guidance at this particular point. And I think it's also a very human thing. I think that it's something that I learned in acting class, which is like, a lot of actors when they're early, starting in their training, tend to play the scene. And what you learn to do with experience is to try and avoid the scene, because that's what people do in life. They, unless you're drama and a lot, but I mean, a lot of people, really, most people, I think, kind of like the ghost who's just passing by in my hallway, just kind of want to avoid the drama, avoid the scene. Like, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to raise my voice. I don't want you to feel misheard or anything like that. I want to tiptoe around this, this as much as I can. As much as I can, because I don't want to agitate. I don't want to make waves. I don't want to stick my nose in somewhere and suggest that something huge could be happening when, what if I'm wrong? And I think that's the way most people operate. But I will say, that's not the only time where I kind of feel it. I do agree with you. Like, I think it's a big part of me going, it's a movie, and shrugging. And because I'm enjoying so many of the other components, there are things that I will let go. I may even notice them. One I noticed in particular is when Foster tells Renee, I don't like when Dalton gets up and walks around at night. Yeah. And the scene ends there. And she doesn't tell her husband, and there's no follow up after that with Foster and everything.
She tells him about, she's like, I had a really strange day, and she just talks about the baby monitor thing.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you know, like no mention of like, and then Foster just told me this really creepy thing like a minute ago.
But it also feels very cinematic, and again, because I'm kind of like, well, where are we going next? And I'm watching it, and then the next thing that happens, because isn't that when we start getting the fucking around with the front door and with the bassinet and all of that stuff? So I feel like if the movie does fall short here and there's enough to distract me from it that I still am totally down for the ride, and it's satisfying whatever it is that I turn to a horror movie of this ilk for. I will say, there is it took me this long to kind of recognize a hole in the plot for myself that is very late in the movie, and I don't remember getting an explanation for it at all. But we were given the impression from Elise that Dalton is being kept away from his body by this evil force, because the more time he spends away from it, the weaker the link and the easier it is for another entity to move into it.
Yeah.
Now, if that is the truth, and again, it's Elise's perception, so maybe that's the way I'll rationalize it for myself from now on when I watch the movie. But if that's what's happening, the old woman inhabits Josh's body at the end like that. And even if she's been hanging around, he has not been away from his body as long as Dalton has. So does he already have a tenuous link with his own body, or has she been like waiting for this moment, like, and revving up like all of this energy? And is she just more powerful than the other spirits? Or what? It was a big gap for me. I was just kind of like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Why would it be so easy for her to go into it? But again, like, I love the end.
Is it addressed in the sequel?
Not that I can remember, but we'll talk about the sequel when we talk about the sequel.
I looked at bassinet. It's I guess more specifically, it's a baby's wicker cradle, usually with a hood. So not quite, but
is that like a Bjorn? Is that the same thing as a Bjorn? I think it is.
I don't know. But I guess the more specific term would have been just to call it a crib, but I wanted to say bassinet. So. I don't know how much more. I guess, like, if we could talk about the ending there, just what is your interpretation of Elise, like, figuring out that it's him? Because there's this sort of, she has this like moment of realization in real time, but then when Renee finds the camera, and then it sort of shows the flashback to the whole thing. And it's like he hands her the photos or whatever, and his fingers are all like dirty, and I don't know if that was that like the telltale sign. It's just like when the demon inhabits your body that you somehow like have like it just shows externally.
It wasn't his hand, I think, because if you look at the scene, this is the way I perceive it. If you look at her body language, she's barely kind of like looking at him. They're not really making eye contact. She's just kind of packing up for the night. She's tired. She's resolved. Like, everything seems to be where it's supposed to be. And then it's when she makes physical contact with him and actually looks at the hand. It's not his. It's the old woman's hand. And then she looks up and might see that something is off, but in order to be sure, she takes the photograph, because that woman, the apparition, always showed up in photographs. So if she's standing before Elise, she'll be in that photo, and that's what I perceive to happen. So.
And I also love the fact that like the rest of the family is in like the room.
Yes.
Like, right next to they don't hear any of this struggle. Like, he's yelling
again, they
at
could have
her.
been playing music in the kitchen or something, or even laughing really loudly. No, not that. But I mean, there could have been a lot of things. They could have been eating like outside, like he's been like cooped up and he wants to be like, I don't know, maybe he wants to be in the backyard where he can like see like the sky and see, like ground and, I think that's
it's a problem with a lot of horror movies, especially in Sinister, where it's just like, why is nobody hearing this shit?
Yes, I agree.
But
that occurred to me the first time I saw the movie. I was like, nobody is hearing him call her a bitch and everything. Like, you're in the next room. Come on.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, like they're sort of hearing it, but it's like it's so like low that they're just sort of like, did you hear something? Like,
it goes on long enough that he has the time to strangle her to death, unless he's breaking her neck.
I guess maybe Dalton is just like a loud slurper of spaghetti, but
Dalton, I can't hear anything over that slurping. And then you hear, you bitch, what?
Well, because he hasn't eaten for months. Yeah. Because they're just like, oh, you're really hungry. Yeah. I don't know. Whatever they had to do to make themselves feel better.
But that. I'm glad you brought up just like that little thing, because that's one thing I also appreciate from the onset is the way we're introduced to the family. I feel like it is a living, breathing family that can have. I love that we even get introduced with a rather precious moment, but isolated between Renee and Dalton looking at photos, and it's so sweet. I always have the biggest smile on my face when I watch that scene of them wearing their matching pajamas, going through photo albums of her and him telling her she looks old, like 21, and then the idealism. Just when it's starting to get like so saccharine, you think it might rot your teeth, which, well, saccharin wouldn't do that. But anyway, you know what I mean. We go into the kitchen scene where the entire family is inhabiting the room together. And it's hustle and bustle, and it's noisy, and it's like, I gotta get out of here. I love you. No, don't cry, baby. Don't cry.
Speak to a representative.
Exactly. It's just, and it was kind of like, okay, now we're here in the daily grind. Like, you're a real family. There's love there, but there's also, okay, got to get the kids to school. Got to get this going. Yeah, I thought you were coming back, and then like all that stuff. And I appreciate that as well. That's another thing that I got that was very Poltergeist for me, because I fall in love with that family as well. Yeah. But one thing that this movie does that I wouldn't even know how to begin is capture that essence of a very authentic family while also creating a very finished look. Like nothing about the house feels fake to me, but it also doesn't feel like I've been in that house. I know that family. I feel like it's white people in a big house, and which was trending after Paranormal Activity, and
would continue to go on for a while.
And would continue, yes, absolutely. But I don't know. There's something endearing about it, but it's shocking to me that I can feel that level of authenticity with also that level of production. Like, it's not only authentic, but it's also, look at this beautiful shot we've crafted. Look at look how beautiful this house looks, or even creepily so, eerily so. From this particular angle. Look at this use of color. Look at the desaturation. Look at the choices in the costumes that our characters are wearing. Like every artistic attempt that every department could make, I feel, is delivering with this movie for me, ultimately. So.
There's a lot of deliberate character choices with Josh. He seems to be very
vain.
Vain, but age obsessed too. Because you mentioned when. Because clearly, with Renee, when she's like, "You look like 21," like I don't think she was she just thought that was endearing. But with him, he's got his eye cream that he's applying at night. He's pulling out the gray hair or whatever, just little moments like that. I definitely I've found a lot in my my beard lately, but they're starting to you're just full on salt and pepper, but I mean there's something to it. It just made me think is there more to this character? Is this intentional, or is it just sort of texture that they're adding to the thing? So I don't know, maybe that something will come up in the second one, or maybe the new one.
Ooh, I'm gonna be looking.
Yeah. I'm very excited to see this, because it's coming out July 7th, so very, very soon upon the release of this episode. But yeah, I'm probably gonna make an attempt to. I'll watch the second one, but I'll try to watch 3 and 4 before seeing.
I think you should.
Yeah. But that's really all I have to say before we get to the cherry picker of it all. So Is there anything else you wanted to address? I know you had something that you wanted to say. I don't know if you already got it out.
I probably got it out, but I mean, I'm afraid if I keep talking, I'm going to end up bringing up one of the sequels. So let's move on.
Okay, all right. Let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people. On purpose.
So we need a cherry on top, and I mean, I have two. But you know, the one that I'm leaning more towards might surprise you.
Oh, okay.
Because I was gonna say Josh.
Really?
I just find like his, like, even though the character irks me in a lot of ways, like I still, I just like, I find his performance very what's the word I want to use for it? It's just it's captivating. Like I'm just like I'm with him every step of the way, even if I don't necessarily enjoy you know, his decisions or agree with them, or just, you know, like the things that he's doing, because you know, he is a flawed character, and
sure,
like, you know, we've said all the time, it's just like, you don't have to be, you know, like a morally like right person or sympathetic or anything, which not to say that he isn't, but just like, you just have to be interesting, and I think that he's interesting. And like, even going back to like the eye cream and shit like that, not that that makes him interesting or anything, but it, you know, it makes him more accessible, we'll say. And I think that his the way that he, you know, moves throughout the movie is always, you know, so much more interesting to me. And I think that Patrick Wilson is a great actor, and probably like one of the strongest in this film. So, you know, that's why I would say him. The only other one I would say is Elise, because you know, I do enjoy Lynn Shay, but I feel like this is where I would have, like, if there was a lot more camp to it, like I would have been like, oh, her. Where I just feel like it's just a little too understated, that I could put her on the top, but I wanted to see what you had to say.
I mean, Elise is kind of the obvious choice. She's the first one who occurred to me, just because I absolutely adore. We didn't spend, actually, now that I think about it, much time talking about Lynn Shay's performance, but there will be plenty.
I figured
of more
that we were
going to
talk about it now.
Yeah,
so that's why we're making room for it.
Right. Also, there's plenty more opportunities to discuss as we progress through this franchise. But she just the absolutely effortless positivity she seems to kind of like just have flooding through her when we first meet her. When she comes in, she's just this kind of wonderful, unassuming, friendly lady who, if you were at work in the service industry, you'd probably really want to serve her, because she seems like she'd be friendly without being obnoxious and taking up your time, and she'd probably tip really well. But just like a very present, positive force, and I love that. And I always love seeing her. I always feel like I'm seeing an old friend. That said, I agree with you as far as Josh. Like, one of the things that I'm really, really grateful for, that's another echo of Poltergeist for me with this movie, is the whole you have to go into this other realm to go save your child. In Poltergeist, it's JoBeth Williams as the mother who goes in after the child. Yeah. And the only reason I'm not upset that Insidious went the other direction is because I feel that Patrick Wilson's character in this movie is much more of a naysayer than Craig T. Wilson was in Poltergeist. And there's something so, I'll use your word, captivating to me about taking the naysayer of the family, like if there is one, he's it, and making them the key to resolving everything. And he doesn't do a perfect job, I agree with you there. But I don't know, it's almost like he's the one who's endowed with this extra superpower, and the one who, it has to be you, Josh. And I can do without Rose Byrne's line that she says to him, "You've always been stronger than me." Like, I every time I hear it, I'm like, didn't need that. But it makes the character more dimensionalized, because had Rose Byrne been the one to go after Dalton, I would have loved her even more, I think, but I would have liked Josh less. Yeah. So let's give it to Patrick Wilson and Josh and that complex character.
I agree. I'm giving the choice to you. So if you want to go with him, or if you want to go with Elise, I'm fine with either. So
there'll be at least we'll have her day.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, there we go. Now for the cherry picker. Last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in Carrie. I nominated Principal Morton. You nominated Mr. Fromm. And across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the vote was 507 for Principal Morton versus 244 for Mr. Fromm.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for trying.
I really wanted to win for you.
It's okay.
Let's see what some of the comments have to say, because they might shed some more light on this. Amethyst Frost. It's been a few months since I saw this movie. Embarrassed to say I only saw it for the first time this year because it was covered on the old podcast, and I honestly couldn't remember either of these characters on name alone. Zach bringing up the principal getting Carrie's name wrong over and over triggered my memories more. And I'm always irritated when fictional characters are willfully oblivious to learning somebody else's name. So fuck that guy. Yeah, we did cover this on the old podcast with Eric, and then we ended up talking. Well, you guys talked more about Carrie the musical than we talked about the actual movie.
Basically, the whole commentary was just breaking down Carrie the musical,
and I was just sitting here like, okay, I guess I get to take a break this week.
But you learned a lot, right?
Yeah, sure.
I'm glad we had another turn at bat with this movie, because I do adore the movie and the source material.
Rowena Potter 895. I'm going with Fromm and Eddie's pick, like always. Because as an educator myself, he makes me so mad. He is awful, picks on the weaker kids, and kowtows to the kowtows to the popular crowd. I've had teachers like that in middle school and high school. It's awful, and one of the biggest factors of me wanting to be a teacher, to be different from them and change it.
Wow, good for you. Thank you.
30 secs to Marshmallow. Mr. Fromm for sure, not to repeat what everyone else is saying, but teachers should look out for their students and not join in on the bullying. I will never forget the teachers from my days in school who saw me get bullied and then said to me, "Get tougher skin." It's only words.
Oh, Jesus. I hate that shit, too. 30 seconds to Marshmallow. I love that 30 name.
Well, it's... I believe this is actually one of my Patreon supporters, Tamika. But yeah, it's 30 SECS 2, and then it's Mars in all caps, and then Schmello. Yeah. Back to lowercase.
I love that. Yeah. That's amazing.
Elliot from Orlando. From continuing my tradition of picking people who bring up bad memories from school. That scene with Fromm reminds me of some bad incidents with teachers in school. Consign that cretin to the cherry picker. Kimberly Monroe. I'd actually say Mr. Fromm. Sure, the principal is an asshole for getting her name wrong multiple times immediately after being told what her name was, but the teacher was just cruel, making fun of her in class in front of all the other students. He's the type of teacher to see a student be physically attacked by another student and pretend not to see it. Also, the way he leered at Ms. Desjardins during the prom was gross.
Oh my gosh, vocal minority. I'm loving this.
Movie Maniac. I went with Principal. He just got annoying with the name thing, but I'm surprised John Travolta wasn't on here for no Saturday Night Fever moves. Well, like I said, did he even go there? Was he even a student at the school?
Yeah, nobody's ever checking him.
Well, I mean,
like, Mr. Nolan, we're expecting you in class.
Well, I mean, clearly, like, Miss Collins knew who he was, because she's like, well, isn't he the
Billy Nolan? Yeah. Right? Yeah.
3. She knows a name when she's heard it 3 times. What about you, Sue?
Good one. I guess you can take your pick. Anyway, go on.
Mendejo, principal just for not being able to remember his student's name seconds after corrected on it. Cassie, my ass. He was probably doing it on purpose. I think that he was doing it on purpose because the way that he says it, like right before the ashtray flip, he's just like, something we're all really worried
Very
about
sorry
you.
about this,
Cassie. He says it like, Cassie.
Okay, now I want to see you play the principal in the next reboot
God.
of this movie, because then he's like, we're all very sorry about this. Cassie! Yeah, I want to see it. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Wish list. Bucket list.
Spidey fan, 1990. Who the hell is Mr. Fromm? Wait, is he... Wait, is that where Bob's Burgers got the name from?
No, maybe. I don't
Is that
think so.
is that their last name on Bob's Burgers? Fromm?
No, they're oh shit, I don't see, no, I'm on the spot and I can't remember their last names.
Okay.
They're not the Fromms, but isn't Fromm Kevin Kline? Here, now I have to look it up. It's gonna bother
Okay, well,
me.
you look that up.
You don't
and
have to
I'll
wait.
keep going, but
Yeah, you don't have to wait for me.
Daddy Queen 82.
Because they're the Belchers. They're the Belchers. Sorry.
Okay, they're the
Bob
Belchers.
And Frond. He's thinking about Mr. Frond,
Oh, okay.
not Fromm.
Okay.
There we go. Cleared it up.
Daddy Queen 82. I agree with the comments about Fromm, but in my opinion, everyone except for Sue deserved to die because no one ever truly tried to help Carrie until it was too late. The poor girl spent her life being abused, and if I was her, I would burn the whole town down too. Ooh.
Okay.
Even Tommy. Jeez.
I guess he didn't. Oh, I mean, yeah. Well,
He only
if
did it
Sue
because
hadn't
he was.
Yeah, if Sue hadn't twisted his arm, he might never have. But I mean, still, there's something to be said for empathy. The fact that in Mr. Fromm's scene, he's sitting there going like, "You suck," and I'm like, "Yeah, I've been around that. I've been in that role too."
Jazzy Dav. I forgot about both of these people, but they both look like jerks. Like they would call the cops on kids for no reason.
Totally.
Schuyler, it's Carrie.
Oh!
I don't, but it's all in caps. I don't know if it's just sort of like if they're suggesting it's Carrie. For the cherry pricker.
It's her line. No, it's her line. It's Carrie when she makes the thing flip.
Okay, there we go.
We're all very sorry about this. Cassie! It's Carrie!
See, sometimes we need context because you can't read tone.
I got it.
Just because I told you it was all in caps, but yeah. So I guess I'm going to interpret that as a vote for the for the principal.
Yes.
Thomas Baker. I would have put Chris on here, but the two males in this movie were so stupid, especially the principal. If he or somebody didn't call me by my real name, I would carve it on their arms so they will remember who I am.
Wow.
Chris was just too much fun, you know? Like, this isn't over. Also, it's not over by a long shot.
And if I hadn't drawn that parallel from the book into the movie, of the fact that they're both, largely victimized and kind of like the products of their parents, like Chris even more so, I feel. Yeah. Monkey see, monkey do. I don't know. I just kind of feel like I'm not making excuses for what Chris did. I think she is a terrible person, and I would probably hate her in real life. But the book and the movie make her kind of interesting. Yeah. And I love Nancy Allen. I'll watch Nancy Allen do anything.
We love interesting characters, and that's why my nomination for the Insidious cherry picker is a character that I don't find interesting at all. I think that they kind of they built it up well and then kind of dropped the ball on it. But I'm gonna go with the lipstick face demon because I don't find him to be particularly frightening once we see the Darth Maul of it all. I think that they other of the spirits and demons were a lot more frightening. I think he should have been kept in the shadows a lot more. And
Okay.
yeah, and he's also the kind of the dick of the movie. So, you know.
Okay. Wow. Okay, I'm glad that we can nominate the apparitions. Because I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as they're not like, you know, they're distinguishable by their own entity and not like part of a hive mind. That's one of the rules of the nominating.
I couldn't remember and I couldn't find the rules.
I'm just gonna send them to you and tell you to like favorite that image on your phone so you'll have it for.
But okay, so since that's your choice, I think I have a worthy adversary for that one.
Okay.
And I call her an adversary.
Sorry, Ross Geller.
Not quite through my. I'm still in my David Schwimmer phase, but of my voice vocally. But no, I'm gonna go with Old Woman because for completely other reasons than you chose yours. The movie kind of begins, actually, it quite literally begins and ends with her, and she terrifies the shit out of me. I think she is the scariest apparition in the entire movie, and as much as I love the filmmakery that surrounds her and everything like that, the fact that there can just be a silhouette passing behind a window shade, and that is, just filling me to the brim with fear. Every time she's on screen, no matter how much exposure we have to her, I feel nothing but a nefarious being that has nothing but ill will. I don't want to know what's going on in her head because it's beyond, and she just needs to be stopped. And the fact that she also was the one who took out Elise, fuck her. Fuck her, what motivates her, her backstory. There's no way you can make that person sympathetic to me. It's too successful. I don't like her. She makes me scared to look outside my kitchen window at night because it's kind of like the same size as the window he's screaming out of, Josh, when at the end of the movie at her, and I don't want to see her outside the window at night. I even have trees. I have bushes, but I think I have a nightmare anticipation that I'm going to look outside my kitchen window one night and the bushes, the trees will just part, and there she'll be smiling at me, and I will die. I will just die on sight. Right. So kill her, kill the old woman.
Well, there you go. That was a very impassioned argument. You can vote your heart, vote your conscience. You got the lipstick face demon, or you got the old woman. And you can vote on Patreon, Instagram, or YouTube. I do want to welcome some new Patreon supporters of mine. So say hello to Shays Bartlett and Russell. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. And if you do want to support me on Instagram, well, you can support me on Instagram too. But if you want to support me on Patreon, you head over there, Zack Cherry. And with that, you will get early access to all of the Cherry Picker episodes, usually about 4 or 5 days before we release them on the regular Tuesdays. If you are subscribed to the Freddy Krueger tier, you will get access to our monthly Patreon exclusive episode. Ooh. This month, our latest release, we're talking about Cruel Intentions. Ooh. You know, not really a spooky movie, but very loosely horror adjacent, because it's more, I'd say more so Scream adjacent, because it's late 90s.
We get into it
with the SNG, and we really went deep. We talked about the movie. We talked about the unaired pilot from 2016. Yes. So, if you've ever been wanting to, listen to a very well-informed dissection of Cruel Intentions, head over to my Patreon, get on that. And there's lots of other bonus perks to being a Patreon supporter. But if you do want to support us as a podcast separate of that, and you don't have the funds to support financially, you can go follow us on Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod, and that's where you can vote as well every week. And you can also subscribe to us on YouTube at the Cherry Picker. And if you are new to the podcast, we are on YouTube, obviously, so you can watch these episodes there. Or if you are watching us on YouTube, go to the RSS feed link down below and just listen if that's, easier for you. But if you prefer one of us over the other, because, apparently some of them have their favorites, like, who was that only ever votes for you?
Let's not name check that.
I feel so betrayed.
Oh my god!
But where can they find you, Eduardo?
You can find me on Instagram, Letterboxd, and YouTube. Edward is Truth, one word, traditional spelling. Any other platforms, don't bother. What about you, Zach Cherry? Where can they find you and support you on Instagram?
Find me on Instagram at retrobitchface, all one word. Obviously. My main YouTube channel is Zack Cherry, ZackCherry. I'm also on Letterboxd, same, Zack Cherry, and I'm on Twitter, ZackCherry8. So all these fun places to find me.
And Twitter.
All these fun places.
And Twitter.
And Twitter. That's right. Twitter. Fuck. Anyway, I also want to thank our podcast editor, Andre Felix, who was on not the last episode, but the one before it when we did Hereditary and our Scream 6 episodes. So we're very appreciative of him, and we can't wait to have him come back. If he even wants to join us, who knows? We might have scared him off. But
he calls us the divas.
He called us. Now I feel bad calling him out. That I appreciate it. If you're gonna be something, be a diva. But
yeah, why not? Oh
thank
my gosh,
you,
I'll
thank
take
you,
it.
thank you, Andre.
Thank you, Andre.
What have we got going on next week?
That's a great question, Zach. What have we got going on next week?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. I alluded to it. I've just an infamous jump scare laden 90s slasher, but it is I Know What You Did Last Summer 2. I still know what you did last summer. I don't know why he called it that, but
I don't either.
Yes, very excited to talk about this one because we waited an entire year. People were wanting us to go right into it after we did the last one, and it's just it's a 4th of July tradition. Technically, the movie came out in November, but I mean, this is the 25th anniversary. We're gonna do it in the summer, it should be done. So,
and apparently another one just got greenlit too, with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt. That's the rumor.
Not
I don't know.
quite. We'll get into that when we talk about that. But anyway, everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and